Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fallout. Today we're talking about Monday Night Football's game, the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. What the hell is going on with Cincinnati's offense? What's going on with Pittsburgh's offense with Mason Rudolph? They took a step forward this week, but is that going to be something they can sustain? We will talk about that on today's episode. All right, everybody, so let's start with the Bengals. Look, I'm selling on Zach Taylor. I'm sorry, 4 games in, he cannot get Joe Mixon in space. He can't get the ball to Gio Bernard. Let me just read you the numbers. Joe Mixon had his best game of the year, 15 carries, 62 yards, 4.1 yards per carry. Bernard, 1 carry, 3 yards. He's not the carrying running back, but in the passing game, only 4 targets, only 16 yards on those 4 receptions. I'm sorry, he had 6 targets. Look, Zach Taylor, we're seeing this, right? Throughout the NFL, everybody that was on Sean McVay's staff has been really just procured and put into a head coaching spot. Matt LaFleur in Green Bay and Zach Taylor in Cincinnati. But at least LaFleur had a season as an offensive coordinator. I was enthused by Taylor. I thought he would get things going. Cincinnati fans, sorry, I think you have great talent on the team, actually. I think the talent on the Cincinnati Bengals roster is underrated, but he cannot get his offensive players in space. And yes, I know there are injuries. I know A.J. Green is a huge part of this offense. I know John Ross went out, which we'll talk about in a bit. I believe he's on injured reserve with an injury. And Tyler Boyd is basically the one guy out there in the receiving corps drawing targets, although I do think Tyler Eifert will get more and more involved as he continues to progress through the season. But this comes down on coaching, okay? You can't use injuries as an excuse to not get your players the ball. It's indefensible. And case in point, Sean Payton in New Orleans, Drew Brees goes out, they're 2-0 against Seattle and against tough competition last week in Dallas, okay? Dallas came to visit them. I'm sorry, Zach Taylor, you need to do better, and that's all it is. Andy Dalton, I think, is okay, but because they can't run the ball, defenses can drop into coverage. 21-37, that's not good enough. But again, they need to commit more to the run. I know that they were losing in this game, but this is 4 games in. That's a quarter of the season. Do better. Joe Mixon, Gio Bernard, they're good running backs. Get them in space, get them the ball, make them more of a focal point, and that is on the shoulders of the play caller. Passing game, look, you're going to struggle when you can't run the ball. When you become one-dimensional especially against a defense like Pittsburgh, who is an opportunistic defense and likes to create turnovers and often does create turnovers, it's just going to be a long day. I mentioned Ross is out. I think what that means, I think Ross was his speed is hard to duplicate, don't get me wrong, but with Tyler Boyd on the other side, he was seeing less coverage. I do think that the other guy that they have coming in there, I believe his name is Auden Tate, will be the guy to draw those targets. I think he will be worth a waiver claim. I do think he'll be worth daily fantasy budget claim because he is going to draw kind of that single coverage and he'll get opportunities. I do think Dalton will have opportunities to throw the ball, but again, like I've been saying with Cleveland in recent weeks, like I'm saying with the Rams in recent weeks, you got to get the run game going to help this offense out. It's a shame because, like I said, they do have talent on this team. I think maybe next week Tyler Eifert will do better. This week he only had 2 receptions on 5 targets, 27 yards. That's not going to get it done. What's going on with this Cincinnati Bengals offense? I don't like the play call selection. I don't like what they're doing. They're just, I just don't think they're using Joe Mixon correctly, and he should be a fantasy football stud, and he's not at this point. And like I said, that leans, in my opinion, on the coaching staff. If you disagree, please, comment on this video. Let me know why you disagree. But let's talk about Pittsburgh now, and let's give some credit to that Pittsburgh defense for shutting down the run and really kind of running away with this game early. That forced Cincinnati to be one-dimensional, and Pittsburgh, they like to blitz, they like to, ball hawk both in the secondary and up front. You got to give credit to them. The Pittsburgh defense is doing quite well. They're stepping up with Big Ben out. We look at Mason Rudolph, and what did I say last week? It's like, why are you going 5 wide? Why are you trying to push the ball downfield? You have Joe Connor. It's the same thing I've been saying with Cincinnati just now, right? You got to focus on the run. You get that established. You hit short passing attempts to your tight ends, to your running backs, and get things moving forward. Well, good. Pittsburgh adjusted. Great for them. Connor only 10 rushes. I don't love that. I wish he had more like 15 carries for 42 yards. Yes, he was involved in the passing game. 8 targets, 8 receptions, 83 yards, and a touchdown. So he was involved. Then you got Jalen Samuels, 10 carries, 26 yards. So what do we have? We have between Connor Samuels and Snell, 22 rushes, which is nice. Mason Rudolph, 28 passing attempts. And for some reason, I have Jalen Samuels. I didn't notice this, but 3 passing attempts for 3 completions and 31 yards. But, Mason Rudolph, 2 touchdowns, but it was a ball control. Jalen Samuels, 10 carries. Well, he also drew 8 targets in the passing game. Deontay Johnson, who I like quite a bit, is starting to emerge. I just picked him up in my fantasy league. I believe that everybody out there should be picking him up. We had a question, what was going to happen with Antonio Brown leaving this team? And I thought that James Washington was going to ascend. Dante Moncrief, we've already seen he was a dumpster fire all season long. But I think Deontay Johnson is passing him and passing him easily. I see Connor is maybe more like, if you remember back in the day with Bryant used to do for Pittsburgh. He used to get a couple deep passing attempts a game with Ben Roethlisberger when he was throwing the ball. I think that's what the offense will be like next season when Roethlisberger comes back. I do see Deontay Johnson creating separation. He had a bad fumble earlier in the game, but he made up for it by getting in the end zone. Drew 6 targets, 6 completions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. And with him ascending, Smith-Schuster, the pressure will ease off of him a little bit. He only had 4 targets and 3 catches. Let's be realistic about this. Chemistry matters in the NFL, and with Ben Roethlisberger starting in training camp, you had Dante Moncrief and James Washington ahead on the depth chart. Mason Rudolph with the second team was thrown to Deontay Johnson in preseason and training camp. I think you're seeing this too in Jacksonville with Gardner Minshew and DJ Chark. When these quarterbacks get in there, trust in chemistry, knowing the timing of the routes, that stuff matters. And I think going forward, although I still love Juju Smith-Schuster, don't get me wrong, I think Deontay Johnson is going to be a bigger and bigger and bigger part in this offense. And again, once he ascends, that's going to take pressure off of Smith-Schuster, and then he'll ascend too. So be patient with Smith-Schuster. Don't panic. Don't trade him. But go out and pick up Deontay Johnson because I think he's going to get you nice value, and definitely insert him in some of your daily fantasy lineups. At tight end, Nick Van Nett, only 2 receptions on 2 targets, 28 yards. Well, it was his first week in there. I think Vance McDonald might be coming back. That tandem there will be nice for Pittsburgh. And again, I think that you're going to be trying to work the short and intermediate parts of the field and take limited shots up top. That's a change, right? That's a change from what we see with Ben Roethlisberger, but it's a change that needs to happen. If Pittsburgh wants to be competitive and win games, they have to work that short area of the field. I was glad to see that they adjusted this week. They had a nice game plan. They came out and they put the team away. So let's see what happens next week. Baltimore is giving up some yards in the passing attack. Let's see how Pittsburgh game plans against Baltimore. I would hope for Pittsburgh's sake it's more of the same. I hope they use James Conner. I hope they use Jalen Samuels in the running game. And let's see that thing going. I do think this is an adjustment. I have more faith in Pittsburgh to get it going than I do in Cincinnati. Sorry, Cincinnati fans, but Zach Taylor at this point is put up or shut up. NFL stands for not for long. You got to adjust. Get Joe Mixon that ball. Things will start to open up. So there you go. There's another episode of the Fantasy Football Fallout. Please, if you disagree or agree or whatever, just comment. That helps. I will be interactive with you. I will answer those comments. Also, if you could help our channel grow, just subscribe and watch some videos. It's very easy. Red button on the lower right, playlist in the upper right, and then you can also hit our logo in the upper left. That will also subscribe. So thanks, and catch you on another episode.